Hello and welcome to the Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always, here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go through a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. So grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. Today, we're going to be doing a mix and match of a lot of things, essentially. We're going to be looking at the tuning currently in WoW. We're going to be looking at the talents and sort of a very brief overview. We're going to be looking at the enjoyment of the pre-patch and, how it's been. And this is very much opinionated. And then, if got time, I'm going to be just going through sort of my mains and ults, going into Dragonflight and the reasonings as to why I've picked them, because a lot of people change their mains and ults every expansion. I was one of these people before Shadowlands, but now that I've gone through pretty much every class to main in each different expansion, I've settled on what my full main class is and specialization. So, without further ado, let's get into the weekly news. Once again, this is going to be very short, the weekly news, due to the fact that the expansion is ending, so there isn't any world events for a while, there isn't much, essentially, to go about. But you have Nurgash, Muckformed, Morgeth, and Antros, all in their represented? All in their respective zones? Yeah, respected zones. All of them are fated, as well as all of the raids, so you can get your Jellycat mount for the week. This is the very last week that you can get this Jellycat. It leaves, or it will not be available in 3 days' time. 3 days as of when this podcast is coming out. 2 days' time? No. Yeah, 3 days. 3 days because America. Yeah. I'm going crazy because it's a global launch, Dragonflight. So 3 days' time, you will not be able to get this Jellycat. So make sure you've completed all 3 of these raids in the fated difficulty in order to get this mount, if you wish to do so. There is no bonus objective this week, and there won't be for a couple more weeks. The rule for this week is Classic Ashran. This is essentially you can hop in and it goes on forever and ever. You have to fully kill the enemy boss in order to win this battleground, but it is very unlikely to do so. It's more of a 40 versus 40 slugfest, and you can explore Ashran for a bit. You can get different buffs, etc. The mythic affixes for this week and the last week of Shadowlands is Tyrannical, Raging, Volcanic, and Shrouded. Tyrannical, the bosses and the minions that they spawn have increased health and damage. Raging, when they get below 30%, they get 100% increased damage. Kill them quickly or soothe the target. Volcanic, little volcanoes sprout up underneath your character. Just move to the side, very simple. And Shrouded, the Nathrazim are in amongst all of the mobs in the instance. Kill them to gain a stat buff, and this can go up to a fair amount. The spell that we're going to be looking at is Power Ward Shield. Now, I had this pop into my head and I was like, there's probably not a lot, with Power Ward Shield, like changes-wise. But this is the most changes that I've ever seen. I have it brought up on my monitor right in front of me, and oh my god. Okay, so we're starting off in beta. Patch 0.7, the mana cost was increased. In the beta, or how about I do this from now on? I'll do it via expansions. So I'll do the beta, I'll do Classic, Burning Crusade, Wrath, Kata, etc. So I'll give it all into like that little patch section essentially. So in the beta, it had 3 changes. The mana cost was increased, the duration was reduced, can now only be used once per 30 seconds per target. 30 seconds! Imagine being able to shield someone after 30 seconds, that's insane. Holy Ward Shield has been renamed Power Word Shield. That was Holy Word Shield. Okay, that's interesting. We have 5 classic changes from December 2004 to March 2006. Now usable on party members only. Now castable on all raid targets. Damage absorption now absorbs damage from mana burn effects like Lava Shield. Lava Shield? What the hell is Lava Shield? Fixed a bug where Soul Link and Power Word Shield, when used together, would heal the Warlock instead of splitting or absorbing damage. Kind of a important bug to fix. And this spell will get a small bonus from items and effects with increase your healing, so healing plus, etc. In Burning Crusade, you had 5 changes going from 2007, March 2007, to May 2008. The damage absorption of Power Word Shield added by the caster's bonus healing has been increased by 20%. You just get a thicker healing absorb shield when you have a lot more healing power, essentially. Damage or the weakened soul effect will no longer sometimes be reapplied while zoning with this buff on. Makes sense. Now gains additional benefit from spell damage and healing bonuses. Base absorb value of ranks 10, 11, and 12 have been reduced. Okay, so it kind of means that your shield gets scaled. Kind of makes sense. Using low ranks of this spell will now be penalized the same way healing spells are penalized. Means that you can't put rank 1 for 30 mana, but it's still like absorbing 2000 damage because of your healing plus items. Now has the correct sound associated with it and can no longer be heard from large distances. Imagine you're just in the opposite sides of like wetlands and you just hear your teammate Power Word Shield or your party member use Power Word Shield on themselves. It's kind of off-putting, which is actually a bug in the game right now in the pre-patch. You can hear a hunter use kill shot from anywhere in that zone or map, essentially. Wrath of the Lich King had 2 changes, one in 2009, one in 2010. This spell can now be cast on a non-raid party friendly targets, which means you can just spam it on people in Dalaran. And it got a small hotfix. The amount of damage being absorbed by Sacred Shield and Power Word Shield is being reduced by 10% correctly in only Battlegrounds, Arenas, and Wintergrasp. So it got a little nerf in these instances. In Cataclysm, it had 3 changes from February to April. The mana cost of Power Word Shield has been increased by approximately 31%, but its effect has been increased by 208%. Okay, not a bad buff, I would take that. It got a small hotfix. Power Word Shield now costs roughly 34% of your base mana, up from 25%. This is not reflected in the tooltip, but is reflected in the amount of mana used when the spell is cast. The tooltip update will require a client-side patch. So, just something very small. And the duration has been reduced to 15 seconds, down from 30 seconds. Power Word Shield used to be 30 seconds. Oh my god, I never knew that. Am I going crazy? There's no way it's 30 seconds in Wrath Classic. That's crazy. Warlords... No, wait. Was that Cataclysm? Yep. Okay, Mists of Pandaria had 1 change. The cooldown increased to 6 seconds, up from 3 seconds. And spell power coefficient increased to 187%, up from 87%. So the spell power you gained onto your Power Word Shield was just drastically increased. Warlords of Draenor had 4 different fixes to it from October 2014 to November 2015. Now has a chance for a critical effect based on critical strike chance and can multi-strike based on multi-strike chance for all specializations. Multi-strike? I don't remember that in Warlords of Draenor. Divine Aegis no longer grants Power Word Shield a chance to critically strike. Borrowed Time has been redesigned and merged into baseline Power Word Shield for Discipline Priests. It now increases the priest stat gain from haste from all sources by 40% for 6 seconds. Very simple. Power Word Shield's absorption has been reduced by 15%. Now absorbs 10% less damage. And we have the last one. Weakened Soul effects from Power Word Shield. Now has an 11-second duration in PvP, down from 15 seconds. The perk, Enhanced Power Word Shield, will continue to reduce the duration of Weakened Soul by an additional 3 seconds. Okay, so it's a slight buff to priests in PvP. In Legion, it got 4 changes from the July of 2016 to the June of 2017. No longer available to Holy Priests. The Weakened Soul and Borrowed Time effects have been removed. The mana cost increased by 51%, now learned at level 8 instead of 5. Power Word Shield cost increased by 15%. And the final one in Legion was Power Ward Shield's absorption amount is increased by 10% in PvP situations. It was 25, so a slight nerf to it. In Battle for Azeroth, you had 2 changes, one in July of 2018, one in December. Cooldown removed for both specializations. I feel like that's a bad call. And once again, applies Weakened Soul, preventing the same caster from recasting it on the same target for 7.5 seconds. So in that short time, it didn't have Weakened Soul, is what I'm gathering. Ooh, spammable shields. It's basically Rapture on steroids, because you have it all the time. In Shadowlands, it had 3 changes, one in October 2020, and the last one coming in May 2022, so the latest patch, or near enough the latest patch. Now available to all pre-specializations and learned at level 4, now absorbs around 32% more damage. And then it got a change a month later, now absorbs 17.5% less damage. Poor little nerf right there. Then we got its final change and its current form. Power Ward Shield absorb amount increased by 10% in PvP combat. Fixed an issue that reduced the value of Power Ward Shield critical strikes in PvP combat. Very simple, but very effective. Power Ward Shield's gone through a lot in its time in World of Warcraft. I didn't think it went through that much, but it's had a lot of small tweaks to try and balance it. It's always been very good, very bad, or very niche, I would say. But it's a very fun ability. I like the idea of having a Weakened Soul after you've given them the shield. It's very much I've given you all of this energy, now I've got to like replenish almost, that kind of thing. It's a fun spell. It's a massive sort of base. It's basically the base kit of priests. Everyone knows it, everyone loves it or hates it, but it is a very much staple point within World of Warcraft and has been since the very start of it. Even though it was called Holy Ward Shield. Yeah, Holy Word Shield at the very start of the beta. And that was a month before it came out. Yeah, a month before WoW came out. That's insane to think about. But that's it for this. What would I call it? What do I call it again? The spell review? Spell review, I guess. Let's get into the meat and bones of the podcast. So, tuning right now. Tuning and enjoyment kind of go hand in hand, so I'm going to kind of talk about them. Tuning is all over the place. I'm not going to lie. Numbers-wise, Prepatch, they always do this. It's something that they can look at the very last knockings as a expansion is about to essentially go live. But from what I've gathered, I've played on the beta, and max level beta, you're looking at sort of a 50% damage increase to the numbers that you have now. So what I mean by that is I do 19k, we'll round it up, 20k for a Star Surge on my Boomkin. On the beta, I've managed to hit 60k. Now, I have 80k health on my Boomkin, or I'd say like 85, and I have on the beta 230k. So essentially, it's a bit more forgiving in terms of the damage numbers when you are max level. We are playing with damage numbers that should be at level 70 or 65 from what I've gathered, because you're having evokers hit breaths for about 115k. I've been hit for 130k, and this is over half of my HP if I was level 70 with very good gear in the first patch of Dragonflight. So the numbers are a bit wonky. Tuning is all over the place. Demon Hunters are hitting like dump trucks, so are Warlocks. They're just rotting everything away. It's something, but once like the expansion basically hits and we get the data coming through to Blizzard about what's hitting hard at max level, what isn't, then they can look at tweaking numbers, but they're not going to tweak it for Shadowlands when we have a few days left in the expansion. So it's one of them things that you just got to put up with. It's quite annoying because I've come up against a lot of Demon Hunters and Warlocks in an arena in like their own composition, and you just get rotted away so quickly. You're having to trade so much stuff due to the fact that they are pumping out an insane amount of damage, and you're having to just pop cooldowns on respecting a Fire Breath, essentially. Fire Breath is the evoker spell, and it is the one that is hitting for dump trucks sometimes, so anywhere between 50k crit to 130k crit. Like, it's absolutely ludicrous. Whereas, other things like my Boomkin aren't necessarily hitting as hard. 19k is the best that I can do. If I get a full moon and I get a lucky full moon, then it will hit for 40k max. But yeah, you've got evokers out here every 30 seconds that can do about 50k constantly. Mine needs to tick, and it's random, the ticks that I get for my full moon, essentially. So the tuning and the enjoyment obviously are a bit wonky. Some people enjoy the high numbers and the very fast paced and the very massive DPS. I've enjoyed myself in Mythic Pluses, where I've not necessarily been on classes that I would have enjoyed it in Shadowlands, such as Shadow Priest, but there are builds and the numbers are big enough that I can see a shit ton of DPS, and it's good fun to just see. In previous pre-patches, such as Warlords of Draenor, they did their first ever stat squish. So we went from, probably hundreds of K, HP, all the way down to about 20k, like we are now, or something like that. And essentially, what this does is bug the game, because obviously it's spaghetti code sometimes. People are walking into the very first raid, Molten Core, 70, no, not 70 levels, because they probably about 30 levels higher, and getting one shot by the trash that was in there, because obviously the trash just hit really hard for some reason. It's one of them things. Tuning in pre-patch is always wonky. The numbers are always going to be a bit crazy, but they're looking at other things over the numbers at the moment, because Shadowlands isn't a priority. Dragonflight isn't live. They can look at the numbers very last thing, as I believe it's as simple as just you go in there, code, and just change a couple sort of numbers in the coding. Obviously, that can break something else. That will probably break an NPC in Stormwind somewhere, or Orgrimmar, or Wetlands, or you can't get a quest now. It'll break something, obviously, but tuning is usually what that is done last in terms of numbers. So I wouldn't be too worried if you're getting annoyed at the Demon Hunters that are one-shotting you, or the Evokers that are one-shotting you, because it seems like we're hitting for what we should in about 5 to 8 levels time, essentially. And that's with good gear, by the way. So, talents. My initial thoughts on the talents right now, I've had a chance to experience most of them. I've had a chance to experience the ones that I'm going to be playing, which is, I'll get to that in a second. But I like the freedom. I like the freedom that you have. It's a shame that we couldn't experiment with the extra talents that we have, potentially, but it kind of makes sense, because they want us to, as we're gaining levels, you get that extra point to put in, you always get that extra incentive to level up and push for that extra level to get that extra talent point to make your character feel more powerful, that kind of thing. So we're not playing at our full potential yet, as we are missing 5 talent points from each of the trees, and this can hinder classes more so, or some classes more so than others. Certainly hinders Boomkin a lot. I've noticed that I'm losing about 32% crit when I'm bursting. I'm losing a lot of utility in this instance. Like, I can get down to a bit more tankier. I can utilize Heart of the Wild, maybe. I can utilize Nature's Vigil, Innovate as well. There's a lot more that I can do. But with Shadow Priest as well, you get a lot more damage. You get a massive DPS increase as Shadow Priest with your 5 talent points for the Shadow Priest alone, like the Shadow Priest specialization. So a lot of these things can be very impactful. For Shamans, I know that you're missing out a lot right now, and with 5 extra points, it will make a world of difference. So you kind of have to take your class with a grain of salt, as they are not fully evolved, I would say. Your class is not fully evolved into its final form, which will be at the end of Dragonflight when you hit that level 70 and you get gotten all of your talent points. But I like the way that I can switch up constantly. I can take Nature's Vigil if I feel like I'm not going to be the target. I can take Renewal and a quicker Stampeding Roar if I feel like I need to kite a lot more or I'm the target. For Shadow Priest, I can take a massive heal. I can play very much Utility Priest or high damage or constant or bursty Priest. I can do a lot. For Shaman, you can go meatball galore, where you're just throwing a shit ton of lava bursts at people. You can go for a more big, massive Earth Shock build. You can go for a load of stuff on a load of different classes. One that I've seen that is very interchangeable is Shaman, and this is not specific Shaman tree. This is the Shaman tree in general, because you have the Shaman baseline tree, and then you have the Shaman specializations such as Elemental, Enhance, and Resto. The baseline tree, you can get a lot. You can go for a massive kiting build. You can go for Spirit Walk. You can go for a faster Ghost Wolf. You can go for a Purge While in Ghost Wolf. You can go for just Ghost Wolf galore, and you could be zooming around the map 24/7. Or you can go for a super aggro build with Lightning Lasso, Thunderstorm to push people away. You can go for anything in Elemental, and 5 extra points in that talent tree is going to be absolutely nuts to get. It's going to be absolutely insane. You'll feel like a whole different class. You'll have too many buttons as a shaman, essentially, when you get them 5 talents in both of your trees. But they're very fun, and you do have to take them into consideration that you aren't at full power. With this, I'm going to go over what my main is and what my ult is, my main ult. And I'll give you sort of the reasonings why. Because a lot of people like to change up their mains during an expansion. And because it is a very good time to switch, because you're not having to catch up gear or learn it mid-expansion. You can learn it while leveling, stuff like that. Essentially, I've been playing every single class since Wrath of the Lich King, since I started. I've mained every single one throughout every single expansion. I've mained a mage in Warlords of Draenor. I mained a priest in Mists of Pandaria. I mained... What did I main in Legion? I've completely forgotten. I think mage was another one. Warrior. I've mained a monk, a Mistweaver monk in Legion as well. I've mained a lot. Elemental Shaman in Battle for Azeroth. I can't remember the older ones, like Cataclysm and stuff. That's too far back. I'm actually pretty sure it was Druid in Wrath. Pretty sure it was Druid. But yeah, essentially I've played all of them throughout every single expansion to a good degree, and I've settled on what my main fully is going forward, which is a Druid and a Boomkin. It's very left field. It's not the most damage. It's not the most... I don't know. It's not the most of anything, but I have located what I want in my classes, what I enjoy in my classes. And what I enjoy is being a very supportive class. So with Boomkin in an arena, I have a lot to peel. I have a Typhoon to push back. I have Mass Entanglement. I have constant Cyclones. I have off healing if need be. I have an Interrupt with Root Beam. I have a lot of utility that I can utilize to support my teammates if they are in danger. And I can use that utility to also set up for kills in arenas. I'm not necessarily looking to be the one to finish a target and kill them. I'm looking to set up my teammate in order to kill them, that kind of thing. Now, this means that my main is obviously going to be a Boomkin. I also love the class fantasy of a druid, shapeshifting into cat, bear, moonkin form. I like being a giant laser chicken, calling moons from the sky, that kind of thing. But ultimately, I also pick it because it's very fast. You don't get slowed. It's tough to lock you down, essentially. And that's what I enjoy about it. Now, my ult is going to be a Shadow Priest. I toyed with the idea of having an Elemental Shaman. I toyed with the idea of being an Evoker. But neither of them came close to the utility that Shadow Priest and Priest in general can provide. Leap of Faith, Fear, Stun, Silence, heals, shields, passive heals through Vampiric Embrace, damage, a shit ton of damage, by the way. It can offer so much, and there's so many different avenues to offer that, rather than, Elemental Shaman being a meatball like machine. You're just throwing meatballs and meatballs at people. You can occasionally hex, lasso, that kind of thing. Totems are very good, such as grounding. Don't get me wrong, every single class has its own utility and its own strengths and weaknesses, but Shadow Priest for me was just the one because of how many options that it can provide. Now, you might be completely different. You might think, I just want to absolutely do a shit ton of damage. Elemental Shaman's probably for you then, because the amount of like meatballs that you can throw out, your lava bursts, your earth shocks, your big earth shocks, your fire elemental pumps, like you can do so much damage. Demon Hunter, a shit ton of damage. Everything has its own strengths and weaknesses, but for finding your main, if you do need to find one, think about what you want specifically in your class. You want to do a shit ton of damage and that's it. You want to be a more supportive class like a Boomkin or a Shadow Priest. You want to be a very good healer that just pumps a shit ton of heals. Mistweaver Monk it is. Do you want to be a utility healer where it's like Disc Priest where you can provide damage while healing and stuff like that? There's a lot that you have to consider, but it's more, if you go down to the bare bones of it, do you want to be a caster or a physical DPS? Do you want to be in there scrapping about like a warrior, or do you want to be standing at the back chilling, seeing the whole sort of battlefield, whereas you're sort of in a rage when playing a warrior? You're just going, yeah, zug zug, yeah, get the hell in there, that kind of thing. Yeah, you've got to really just break it down to the bare bones, and it's quite tough to do. It's very tough to do, to be honest. It's more of a process that takes a few days. You just got to know. You just got to have the gut feeling of, this is my main, and I'm going to enjoy it this season. And that's based off of talents as well and stuff like that. Just the enjoyment. Find what you enjoy and you will become good at it, essentially. But yeah, that's it for this week. Thank you all very much for listening, as always. This is a bit of a bits and bobs, essentially, I'll call it, podcast or episode. But if you wish to check out ad-free content, check out the Patreon. Constant uploads going on there, as well as the YouTube and Twitch. Twitch will go live every Wednesday and Sunday at 7 GMT. This is when I inevitably raid in World of Warcraft. So you're more than welcome to tag along, just chill out, hang about. But it is good fun. It's very chilled raids. It's nothing hardcore. So be sure to check it out. It would mean the world to me if you did. Once again, thank you all very much for listening, and go with Valor, friend. Goodbye all.